Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Mind Time with Madison. And today I have a very special guest with me. She is an Olympian. And not only that, she's a mental health advocate. She's an all around amazing woman. And I think we're going to learn a lot from her today. This person I'm talking about is the extraordinary KK Clark. KK, thank you so much for being on Mind Time with Madison, and for your time. And how would you like to describe yourself to our audience? Just tell us a bit about yourself in your own words and kind of your journey into the world of mental health.
Yeah, well, first of all, that was a very sweet introduction. Thank you very, very much. And I'm honestly honored to kind of be able to speak to more of you out there that kind of are interested in the topic that we're talking about, which is mental health. And I'm so grateful to now kind of have a voice and have a tiny little platform with the experience I had as an athlete to contribute my perspective into the topic, because I think everybody has a different perspective and we're all experiencing mental health at different varying degrees at different times in our lives. But initially, I will definitely admit I was very ignorant to the topic growing up. Definitely fell into some of the traps where you can kind of just generalize the way someone's acting or someone's thinking because you don't understand it. But I would say in 2008, so 10 years ago, my middle sister, I'm the youngest of three girls, my middle sister had a manic episode and was diagnosed bipolar 1. And that experience was definitely life-changing for her. But as a family, we really kind of rallied around her and tried to understand her illness and a lot of the other illnesses, and just try to open ourselves up to the topic, because I think the first thing that you need to do is kind of, identify what it is. That's probably the most important thing, the diagnosis, the first thing, and then just doing what we could as a family to support her. And in doing so, just dedicate time to learning more about the illness and learning more about just what resources are out there and how we can get involved individually and as a family. So she is doing very well. She's stayed on her meds, which I think the more you get to dive into the topic, the more you realize is not an easy thing to do. And she's managed to stay on them. And over the course of the 10 years, really work hand in hand with her doctors and therapists to sort of manage her dosage and kind of find that right balance. So at this point, 10 years later, I feel like she's finally kind of feeling, not in the cloud, not really tired. Because initially, we spent 3 weeks in a psych ward at Stanford, and her 21st birthday, Christmas Eve, all of those things just put life into perspective. And fortunately for us, she's disciplined in that sense. And also just the illness affects everybody differently. And so she's kind of one of the lucky ones, we say, hasn't really had a relapse yet. We all know that can happen at any time. But she's also incredibly open about it. And so she's given us this beautiful opportunity to share her story through our perspective. So that's how I was kind of introduced to the topic as a whole, and really realized that I wasn't someone that knew what I was talking about when I was, like a girl, someone at school, oh, she just wants attention, or, oh, she's acting crazy, and it's so funny I'm saying she. I feel like it was, it's not as common to kind of generalize the other gender. Maybe it is now, but when I was growing up, it was kind of just something that happened in, my girl community growing up. But yeah, I try to be as reflective as possible and just be open to sharing her story. It's so funny. I feel like I started talking about her more than myself, and then through her strength and her ability to be open, it's also given me the permission to kind of really be introspective to myself and sort of feel around inside of me and see what's going on in my mind. And fortunately, I have had athletics to help kind of be the backboard where I can just learn a lot about how my mind works. So I was able to do that through water polo. And really from 2012 to 2016, I was on the national team. And that's where it's so funny. You kind of get to this physical point where you're physically not equal to your counterparts or your teammates, but the edge is all mental at that point. You've kind of hit this plateau with the physical strength or endurance and all of that stuff and all the training. You can't do more training. And it's really like who has the mental edge, mental strength, mental flexibility. To be quite honest, flexibility is probably the best word, where we just got to kind of explore that as a team. And then I kind of went with it because I found out it really worked for me, to be really in touch with my own mind. So.
Wow. That's incredible. And there's so many things I could ask you. I'm going to start with your sister, and then I'm going to move into your athletic journey as well, because I think both are so fascinating. And can you describe what it was like to support your sister at the time? At Team, we're very focused on peer-to-peer support, and clearly your mom and your family and you and your sisters have been such an incredible support for your sister. And she's clearly inspired you as well. And so what was that dynamic like? Like, what do you think worked? What do you think didn't work? Was there a stigma in your family before? How did you guys get through that time and get to where you are today, which seems just incredible?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it makes me I'm kind of categorizing them in almost timing pieces, the way I'm initially just responding to that question. I feel like there's a support in, unfortunately for us, there was no kind of leading up to the manic episode that we were in tune with. I think it can be really difficult when you're so close to someone or so far away, whether it's close to them, but distance wise, you're far away. You may not be able to pick up on any of those signs, and there may not be those signs. Right. I think with bipolar, from what I understand, it can be genetic. It can be, all of these things. There's like a flip that's switched, and it can happen at any time. I think more commonly early 20s is kind of when it shows itself, is what I kind of remember the doctor telling us. But she was in her early 20s at the time. So unfortunately, we didn't get to support in any sort of lead up to, I would say, like the moment that this all kind of came together and happened. And then her manic episode, we didn't know what it was. She actually, and her and I do giggle about it now because it is, we look back at it a little bit lighthearted. She didn't end up harming herself. She didn't harm anybody else. So it was radical. She left. She took our family car for 3 days. She went down to UC Santa Barbara, where she was in school at the time. This was over Christmas break. So she wasn't in school, but she went back there and gave manuscripts to friends of hers and all this stuff. We didn't know what was going on. We thought maybe she was going to break up with her boyfriend or something. We didn't know. And so we were like, well, we'll let her go. And when she comes back, we'll, talk to her. And 3 days go by and we got a weird phone call. She ran out of gas. And so we had to call AAA for her. It was kind of random, interesting things, but we're like, okay, she's kind of off doing her own thing. And I remember the night she came home and her eyes were really alive. And it was late at night. And I remember going in her room because I was the younger sister and I wanted to figure out what was going on. My parents were ready to close the house down. I think it was 10 p.m. And she was so energetic. And that's something I think that is common in manic. People who are experiencing a manic episode is just the energy is very, very intense. I didn't know it at the time, but she hadn't slept for 3 days. She hadn't eaten for 3 days. We didn't know any of that. And kind of long story short, she revealed to me that she was thinking different things. And I asked her, I was like, are you high? Did you take something? My family was really conservative. That would have been very out of character for her, but I didn't know. And she told me, she's like, yeah, I took LSD. And I was like, so many questions pop up into my head. Because I'm like, one, where would you get that? Two, well, how, who, what, when, where, why? And I was like, that's so strange. And she's like, yeah, but dad already knows and everything's fine. So me, the little sister, trying to piece together, if dad has time, I don't think he would be cool with it. And he's turning the lights off. And I remember going out and trying to probe him, so have you talked to Christy? And, he was like, no. And I kind of weaved it in there. I was like, so she didn't mention she was on LSD. Like, I didn't know how I like felt bad for throwing her under the bus, but in the moment, like I want to protect my sister. And it was really out of character. So,
yeah.
So he was like, no, what are you talking about? And we woke my mom up and we kind of made a plan. This was our support in the moment, because we didn't have all the information. We were given very little information from her, and she doesn't have this. And so my parents were like, all right, we're going to go with her trip until she falls asleep. And then we're going to like really, obviously have kind of like an intervention or a family talk in the morning. So we were all on board. We're like, whatever she said, let's just go with it, and then we'll kind of make decisions based on that. And it was funny, like she came out and she had my dad take a letter and drive it. Well, she said, you have to mail it. And he was like, okay. And he drove around the block and pretended to mail a letter. My mom had to bury something in the backyard. It was a multitude of like things that people had to accomplish. And a lot of times people say a bipolar manic episode doesn't follow a line from ear to ear. It's like very jumbled, and that's was aligned with what we were experiencing. Our thoughts were really jumbled. There was no like linear sense of anything. But again, to our knowledge, it was just that she was on this weird trip that we couldn't explain. So jumping forward, we kind of were just, I felt like we were like trying to catch all the balls she was throwing in the air, like juggling, and just kind of be there for her in that moment. And she ended up grabbing scissors from the kitchen, which I noticed. And I was like, that's not great. So I followed her into her room, and at that point she had cut all of her hair, like just kind of like a,
oh my God.
And I think we can all agree that's a cry for help of some kind.
Yeah.
And the scissors were kind of a scary thing too. So we called the ambulance, and they came at about, I think this was 1 a.m. probably. And they came and they took her to the hospital, and we followed. And hours go by, they do all the tests. We tell them what we know. We're like, she took LSD, I guess. This is how she's acting. And hours go by, and the doctor came and sat us down, and they were like, well, we have good news, we have bad news. The good news is that she's not on any drugs. There are 0 drugs in her system. The bad news is there are 0 drugs in her system. So it's a psychotic episode of some kind, and we have to decide if it's bipolar or schizophrenic. So, those are hard things to hear in the moment. But I think after that, the support that we showed was, being there, visiting her every day in the psych ward. Obviously, we entrusted her health to the medical professionals, and we visited her when we were allowed to. And it was really interesting to see her progress from, I think initially she was very sedated, because that's something I think they do just initially, just to kind of get you on a playing field that everybody can manage, and then slowly kind of pulled back some of that, because everybody's different and everyone's just doses of everything's different. So it took several weeks, but she ultimately kind of woke up, I would say, a little bit from that sedation, and kind of understood toward the end of her stay. She understood what was going on, but I would say in the beginning it was really hard to see, because she thought it was like I was like not an experiment, but when we would visit, she'd be like, okay, so you guys hold the door. I'm like 5 seconds behind you. And, it was like this escape plan. And it was really hard seeing someone that you love not acting like themselves, not thinking like themselves. But again, I think just kind of entrusting her with the process of the medical professionals and working with her doctor, and seeing slowly kind of her come to the realization of like what had happened, because I don't think she remembered most of it. So that was just kind of how we supported that. And then afterward, we were kind of on high alert for a little bit there, just like making sure, because they do say it's really common to have relapses at these sort of episodes. And, it never kind of came. I think there was like one hiccup right after she had come home, but she just stayed on her meds, and we never saw anything really after that. I will say there were the funny thing is my sister and I, there's always things that we're a little alert to. Christy has a little dog that she got, that's kind of definitely sort of a security blanket for her now. But One day she made an Instagram for Soli and posted all of her photos that she has of Soli on this Instagram. And me and my other sister saw this all happening, and we were like, this is really weird behavior. So we texted each other, and my oldest sister called her and was like, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? And she was so funny. She's like, I really appreciate that you guys are checking on me, but I'm deleting photos because I'm out of storage, and so I'm throwing them on Instagram. But thanks.
Oh my gosh, so that extra sensitivity.
Yeah, I think we kind of live with this extra sensitivity of things. For a while too, she was blogging or journaling online. So again, years go by, no sort of relapse. Obviously, life's a little bit different. But she later went to her doctor at Stanford and said, hey, I've really put a lot of time and effort into researching the long-term effects of some of these things, the drugs that I am on, because they layer you're on, the lithium, but then you may be on this for that, and then that makes you gain weight, so you should go on this salute, just it can be layers and layers and layers of things. And over time, I think she really kind of wanted to lean into what she was putting in her body, and she proposed to her doctor if she could go off of some of those extra things that had been layered initially. And her doctor was like, honestly, you're a very good candidate for this. I'd love to observe you. But we're doing it on my timeline, and you're not ever going to go off lithium, because that's the antipsychotic that is really going to fight the effects of bipolar. And over time, I'm not comfortable with you going off of that. So they kind of came to an agreement, and over the course of kind of weaning her off of the layering other drugs, she kept a logbook and a online journal that she gave only a few of her closest family and friends the password to. So like we could all observe her thoughts and see like where she was at the beginning, and if they were getting kind of jumbled. And so it was really cool that she created this arena and invited people in to hold her accountable. I think that's super brave and really cool of her. So yeah, it's been definitely a two-way street, but I think as her family member, we're always going to keep a close watch on her behavior, and she's also constantly keeping a close watch on her mood swings and things like that. She dove into yoga. She really enjoys that as kind of an anchor, I think. We all know the exercise, the food, the nutrition. We kind of all got on that game as well, because when you take a step back and look at brain health, all those things really, really play a big part. So,
yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that too. That she has like a journal and like so organized and conscious, really, of her whole process and ownership of that. It's just that's amazing to hear all of that, and it's so great because it's not the typical. And I think we we need to hear more stories like this too, because it's not your typical narrative that you would hear that's typically stigmatized about someone who has bipolar. Like it's incredible to hear how far she has come, and what she's done with her situation and what you guys have done as a family. It's just really remarkable. It's amazing, and so I'm so glad that you're sharing this on with us, because I know that people watching, my friend actually, she was diagnosed with bipolar 1, and so just recently, and I think it's amazing to hear these kinds of stories as someone who is there to support them as well. And it's awesome.
And amazing. I mean, don't get me wrong, she she makes her own choices, and I remember she came, and we all kind of know there's certain things that people with this diagnosis maybe won't be experts at. One of them, managing money. That's just one of the things. Spontaneous choices, spontaneous decisions that kind of like correlate to the swings of mood. And there was like a year or two stint where she told her family, she's like, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to move to LA. And we were like, that's a really like big decision to make. Are you sure? And she stood by it, and my parents supported her in that move. And we know that a stable environment, stable this, stable that, is the best for her health. So the move and having roommates and things that are out of your control were not easy for her. She's still, I think she wrote the book. She won't let any of us read it, but she was able to kind of live out this dream or this goal, with, I think, I'm sure any parent would be like, that's a terrible idea. Why would you do that? You know what I mean? But I think my family supported her, and she wanted to make that choice, and she did. And she is, since then, she's back up in Northern California, but working in a really stable job. And like I said, she lives alone. She has her dog. She has those stable things that you really, really need.
Yeah.
The stressors that you can control, I think, are really important. But we've also, she's gonna live her own life, and nobody else can control that. But I think you can communicate the way you feel about a choice, but then just support it from then on. And I think that's the best you can do.
Mm-hmm.
As long as that person's still living like a healthy life, that there's in no way some sort of, they're not harming themselves or harming others, I think.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I guess it's like, I feel like it's even that with like even someone who doesn't have mental illness, that it's like that thing of like, we so badly want to be able to control what they're going through so they don't have to go through a difficult time. But that's it takes a lot to be able to do that. And I guess it's like
I mean, it's the same with ourselves too. We have to like submit to ourselves and let even our own thoughts, right? Like we get negative thoughts that spiral, thoughts that, like, at the end of the day, and we can get into it in a little bit, but I kind of started meditating with the national team and worked on that outside of that arena as well, just on my own. And I remember coming to that realization that like you cannot control your thoughts, but you can control how you like react to them. And the same thing goes for anything in life, right? Like you can't control necessarily what's happening, but you can control your reaction. And I think that's what empowers you ultimately. Like you can identify a thought as it comes in and be like, that's not a constructive thought. That's a bad one. I'm going to let you just like keep going, like move along, And I think meditation can be a tool for people and I notice it with myself now, not doing it as often, that I'll have like a day where I'm like, that was a really tough day. And it was like, well, I did catch myself when I was like thinking all these bad things. And I just kind of let them affect me and like seep into just the air around me that day. The good news is every morning we wake up, it's a new kind of a fresh start. And I think it's important to be gentle with ourselves. When I know meditation's good for me, but I don't always do it all the time. So
why do you sorry
no, please jump in whenever.
I do want to hear more about the meditation and like how, like, because I got into meditation too as a competitive dancer, and was it getting the mental edge? Like you said, like you get to a certain point where everyone's just the same physically. Was it for you getting into meditation? Was that to get that mental edge? Like how did it introduce you into that? And then I want to hear more about your practice and like everything and how you find it challenging and all of that.
Yeah. So it's so funny. I think it's almost the opposite of trying to get a mental edge, because it's something that as a competitive person, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to like get that edge. If it's, 30 extra minutes on a bike or coming in on a Sunday or, whatever it is. But meditation's the thing that allowed me to just like liberate myself from my thoughts and from that, like that rat race of getting better, being better, be like, well, but you did this wrong. And kind of that rat race of just, you can kind of get lost in that. And I think meditation allowed me to like be in my body at that moment. And especially in sport, it's really easy to make a mistake and think about that mistake and have it affect the next play. But the most important thing in a big moment, in a big game, is to do what you're trained to do what you've trained hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of hours to do. Your body already knows what to do. So it's almost getting out of your head is what the meditation, I think, gave me. And so there were little anchors that I would do, just like feeling the water on my toes and trying to be really go back to the senses. That's like the way that I found it best for me to feel anchored and feel more in the moment. Because every athlete wants to be in the zone, right? We're like, how do you get in the zone? Like everybody's been there, every dancer, everyone's been there where you're just like not even trying and everything's flowing and you're just like, you don't even have the conscience to be like, this is so great. You're just in it. And and then of course, the more you like try to do that, the harder it is to like, get there. It's a really natural phenomena. But I think meditation's like almost kind of a micro moment where you can kind of just anchor yourself and kind of have a reset. So the things I would do specifically, outside of kind of just guided meditations at night before bed, I would try to do it twice a day, but that's really hard. Once a day was it for me. But when I was in a moment, so before every game, I would focus as the national anthem was playing, because that's when it was really silent, and it was just, that was an easy anchor, like, oh, national anthem, now I can do this. I would focus and identify in my head 3 things that I could hear, 3 things that I could feel with my skin, and 3 things that I could see. So I would like usually focus, I'd be like, oh, there's a cone, there's the flag, there's like the table or whatever. And then I would always hear like the gutter, the water in the gutter, the national anthem, maybe the murmurs of the crowd. And then feeling was the coolest, because I'd feel like a drop of water on my shoulder, which like in any other moment, I'm not paying attention to that. But a drop of water, like the weight of my feet in my sandals, and maybe like my wet robe or something like that. So that was just something I would do before every game to kind of be like, oh, okay, it's just another game. It's not like the end of the world, or it's not the gold medal game, which I did the same thing in the gold medal game, and it didn't feel like a gold medal game. It felt like everything else.
Awesome.
So that was just like my personal thing that I would do. I told my mom about it, so she started doing it. So that was cool, because I felt like when I was doing it, I was like, oh, my mom's doing this right now too, like in the sand somewhere. And that's kind of what I did. And then, I mean, a lot again, but all this stuff in practice was just like, when you swim, it's already meditative, because you're underwater, you can't really hear anything. And so you're kind of with your thoughts. And I think I got really good at just being in my thoughts during a swim set, being like, oh, that's pain, my shoulder hurts, but I'm going to keep going. And that's a negative thought you're having, reflecting on maybe yesterday's practice. Like, why not? Like, it's over. We can't control it. Just like, let that go. And I was just like, I would have conversations and some of my teammates didn't do this. Like, some of them didn't have to, but like, I was someone who was always thinking. And so you have to deal with the fact that you're a thinker, and be able to kind of work with your thoughts. Not everybody's thinking as much as I am, I don't think, but.
Oh my gosh, I can totally relate. I was exactly the same way. And then my sisters, when they were doing their stuff, they were like, how do you think so much?
I know, like, don't you just do it?
Going on? Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, I love that. Wow, that's incredible. What you've done with that meditation practice, man. Holy smokes. If anyone here hasn't meditated, just listen to that. That's motivation right there. Like, get into it.
There is a really good book. Maybe you can link it, or I don't know where it is, but it's a friend gifted it to me, and it's kind of what I was reading the first few chapters. I was like, yes, this is me. It's called Mindfulness, 8 Easy Steps to Finding Peace in a Chaotic World, or something like that. And it's written by some really well-known pro meditation. Obviously, it's founded in a little bit of Buddhism. It's founded in kind of some other sort of ancient practices, but they really just pull the mindfulness aspect out of it, and just kind of explain the value of it, a little bit of the history. And again, I look at myself, I'm like, I'm a failure. Like, you read the first few chapters and just kind of repeated those talk tracks because they were working for you, but you didn't get through the 8 chapters or whatever it was. So I guess my next goal is to actually finish it. But again, that was always one of my things, like, be gentle to yourself, because being really competitive and critical, like, you can get into that. I think we talked briefly too about being a perfectionist. Like, I have to finish this whole book and I have to do everything that it says, and then, and only then will I get the full benefits. And that's not the case, right? It's, you're putting the time in, you're taking an extra step to better yourself. That's enough. Like, you just kind of have to be gentle with yourself when you're trying to reflect and be like, I didn't do everything I was supposed to. But I constantly fight that enough word. That's a tough one at times, you know?
Yep. I totally know, and it's the whole feeling of feeling good enough, and I want to. This has to be enough. It's.
Yeah,
I think everybody has some kind of block with not feeling enough in some area of our
definitely.
lives, and do you see perfectionism as a way of I guess trying to fill that belief? Like I've struggled with it too, and when did you notice actually like the perfectionism starting? Like, have you always had it? Like,
I think I have always had something to do with it. I remember such a strange memory in middle school. I was just like a straight A student growing up. I was just like kind of, yeah, that's what we do.
casual.
But I remember in middle school, it was like some of the cooler kids were getting B's and like weren't so. And I was like, okay, so if you get B's, then that makes you cool. So I remember like dumbing myself down just to like hang out with the cool kids, and it's laughable now to look back on. But like as a kid, you kind of try to figure out how do you get from point A to point B. If like I want to be one of those kids, and how do I do like maybe like how do I relate? And like I remember
Mhm.
I don't know why it was cool to not do well in school. Like some things are really backwards when you're like that age.
Yeah.
And by no means did I start failing classes, but I remember like me not getting like a B plus and being like, oh, yeah, talk to like so and so about that later, which is so
Oh
not
my
cool.
god. Yeah. Oh my
But to get back to the perfectionist thing, I think I've always been a procrastinator, and one of my therapists in college, I sought out therapy after my freshman year. We had won the championship, and then we lost, and a lot of other things weren't going my way, is the way I saw it. And so I did seek out therapy in college, and that was my first kind of intro. But I knew it was a cool, normal thing to do because my sister was doing it. So there
god.
wasn't a stigma when I signed up for that at that point, because I knew that it was beneficial because of my sister. If my sister was never diagnosed with a mental illness, I don't know if I would have had the courage to be like, I should go see a therapist.
Wow.
But with them, I remember he explained to me, he's like, I'm not saying it's written in stone, but a lot of people who procrastinate are perfectionists, because if you give yourself the full time, you're going to spend the full time getting this thing perfect, but you also know you're going to get it done, and so you wait to the last moment to get it done because it's just like have to. And I've struggled with that in my academic career, definitely, putting things off and just adding extra pressure and stress to myself, because I'm already like a slave to like getting the project exactly how I think it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think those things go kind of hand in hand. I think perfectionism, well, one, it doesn't exist. It's like I'm not actually a real thing because nobody's perfect. But all of the perfectionists out there are like, all right, that's what they want you to believe, but I'm different. So it's a constant battle. But I think it's always, I mean, for all these things, I think journaling's great. Like even in kind of the negative self-talk we touched on briefly, like after I was on the national team, so short timeline, summer before the Olympic Games, I was actually cut from the team. I wasn't performing, I wasn't executing. I didn't deserve to be on that team, so it was ultimately a good thing. That one, like our coach he was a fair coach, and two, I had a year to turn it around. But I remember my sports psychologist, who we did have on the team, said, all right, write down everything that you're saying to yourself right now. And it was like, you won't make the Olympic team. Nobody's ever been cut a year before and made an Olympic team. You aren't enough. And I like physically wrote all the negative self-talk down, because those thoughts happen and you're comfortable with them because you've seen them before at different stages of life. But writing them down, I was like, oh, I'm really mean to myself. And we kind of worked with those phrases and turned them around somehow. Or just kind of, he was like, does that mean, so nobody's made an Olympic team that's been cut the summer before. Does that mean that's your fate? Is that really set in stone? And so we kind of learned to learn that all those kinds of thoughts are flexible as well. Which I thought was really great. Being able to look back on my journal and see those words written down, you're just like, I got to her. Like I beat that kind of little devil on the shoulder because I didn't let those ultimately get to me, but I felt them. And I think it's important to acknowledge them. You're going to say those things to yourself, but the meditation helps you realize that they're just clouds passing by. They're not set in stone. They're not these like finite things. And that was the biggest work that I did, was just kind of revealing that all those things thoughts aren't not real, which is crazy because you make so many decisions based on your thoughts. So it's just important to identify the constructive ones and the good ones versus the bad ones. And you can also have bad good ones. You can have ones that are like, you're amazing, you're so good, you don't need to work any harder, like you've already done it. Those are really bad too. So I think just working on the identification of thoughts and kind of your relation to them.
Wow. Yeah, I love that.
Again, we're thinkers. So maybe not everybody's hearing this the same way, but that's just kind of what really worked for me.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, and it's kind of what you and then you were on the Olympic team, and just wow, like that's incredible. What a feat in itself, like mastering the mind and overcoming that for you. That, can you describe what that process was like? Like, would you say it was one of the most difficult things you've done? To me, just listening to it seems so difficult to overcome that.
Yeah, it was extremely difficult. One, because the team was so talented that, and our coach put us through such physical, demanding workouts that you're exhausted already. Having to work with your mind, like laying down for a meditation, you're like, I hope I don't fall asleep because I am so tired. So you're already dealing with this physical exhaustion, which is intentional because you're going to be physically exhausted in the fourth quarter of a game or in overtime, and you're still going to have to think and kind of be able to identify all those things that I've already been talking about. So the physical stuff was really difficult. The journey for me was the growth journey. I think was, at the beginning, I told myself, if I'm going to commit to making an Olympic team, winning a gold medal in Rio, and if I don't, then I'm a failure. That was the first lie I think I told myself. And so from then on, it was, as long as I make the team, I'm good. I'm good enough. I'm good enough if I make the team. That's the most important thing, is making the Olympic team. And fortunately, I was able to kind of step back and realize that whole journey wasn't about that. It was about personal growth, being a part of something bigger than yourself, just knowing, being put in situations you'll probably rarely be put in your life, and discovering kind of what you're made of. That was the coolest thing for me, was being put in a situation where it's like, who are you really? Like, how are you going to respond? I would say the summer I was cut from the team, my biggest fear had finally happened. Up until that point, I had been on every roster. So I was good enough up until that point. And then that happened. And I was faced with essentially like a fork in the road. And it was, you making the team, like, we're scrubbing that. Like, this might not happen. That's not the end goal anymore. Like, what, obviously it's your dream, but if that doesn't happen, how do you want the rest of this road to look? And it was, was let this break you, me not making the team totally break you, and maybe you aren't good enough, and life goes on no matter what, because ultimately me being chosen on the team was out of my control. But this reality, it's like, this might not work out, and it could just suck for the next year. You could quit now, like you can quit and get out now, but how would you live with yourself after that? And then the other road that I could take is jump back, get better, do what you need to do. If it's not good enough to make a roster, then you did everything you could, and it's just still like a really positive experience, because we train with 15 to 20 girls and only 13 make a team. So even if you're not making a team, you're not the only one. There's a group of people that don't make that team that did all the same amount of work. And so being someone that was on the other side of that fence, I remember thinking to myself, like, well, if I'm on that team one day and someone's not, I'm going to acknowledge them to the best of my ability, because I remember just feeling invisible. I stayed in Russia. I watched the team win a world championship from the stands. And I just felt so invisible, and I just wanted to be a part of it. Like, I just want to be on the bench listening to the team meeting. I don't need to be like scoring goals. So I kind of realized I just wanted to be a part of it. And in order to just be a part of the bigger thing and have fun doing it, it was point road B, the fun, the one where you just get to see how good you can be and be the best teammate you can absolutely be. And it's going to suck if you don't make this at the end, but that's not what it's about anymore. It's about just like dedicating yourself to this team. And so I like really just kind of submitted and put everything up to, it was like, whatever happens, happens. The worst thing happened that I could think of, and I'm just going to try to turn it around and be the best athlete and see how good I can be. And so that was the coolest thing, because it just totally liberated me. And it wasn't this whole like, am I going to make the team? What if I don't? Like this kind of like really stressful, like weight on your shoulders. And it was just like, here I go. And this is what I'm going to try today. And this is, I'm going to be creative and I'm going to race you. And I'm just like, I've got nothing to lose. So it became, but at the same time, staying really focused, because it was between me and one other girl who's an amazing human. I love her dearly. She's also just like hard, because you're fighting in your head, you're competing with one person essentially, and they're your friend. And I remember everything sort of happened the exact same way that it happened right before World Championships, where he was bringing 14 girls. She was the other girl coming along. Like, you can like feel yourself potentially like losing this moment. And we were maybe a month or two outside, a month out of him naming the team. That happens in June. The Olympics is in August. And we were at a tournament. Same thing. He brings 14 girls. It's like between her and I, we're taking turns playing in the games. And I remember being so prepared for that moment because of the work I had done with the mindfulness and the catching of my thoughts. Because if that had happened again, and after World Championships, I had made every roster. And then she kind of comes in and we're trading turns. And I was just prepared for it. I was like, this is a negative thought. Like, this is a trick. Like, your brain is trying to tell you everything's going to happen all over again, just the way it did in Russia. But it's not. This doesn't mean, one thing doesn't mean that it's going to happen again. Just focus on me playing. And so I was able to do that. And I remember playing really, really well. And I remember that I played in the last game. We each played 3 games, but I played in the final game. And I remember as soon as the buzzer rang, I was like, I literally did everything I could. I did everything I could. I was at such peace with the whole thing. I was like, if I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't. I've done everything. Like, I responded the way I wanted to respond. Very proud of everything that I did after, you know, it didn't really deserve to be on the World Championship team anyway. So yeah, we had no idea who he was going to name, but there was a specific day. We all came to the pool, did some laps. All of us probably wanted to barf, because the culture of the team, even the 3-time Olympians, were like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. And I was like, you're going to make it. Like, I know you are. But it was just a really competitive environment. And being able to sit across the room from him telling me that I had earned a spot on the team was kind of my gold medal moment, just because the team was so talented. Like, the 5 girls could have won the Olympics. Like, it, obviously we all had a huge part to do with it. But the talent was there, and it was just such it was just so cool that I could look back and be like, this happened. I responded this way. I really learned how to work with my mind. I did everything I could, and it worked out. And it doesn't work out for everyone. It wasn't like swimming where there's a certain time that you hit and you know you're an Olympian. The coach ultimately chooses, but I had done what he had asked, I guess. I mean, I remember in our meeting, he's like, you've improved so much. I think you're just going to keep going and have an amazing Olympics, and everything's kind of just fun from here on out. And I was like, looking back, I wasn't playing huge minutes. I was ready to. You're always like, as a role player, you're really ready to play those minutes. But looking back, I had an awesome Olympics. Really, really fun to look back and feel like I did kind of leave everything out there, and was able to kind of retire, make that promise that I made to myself years prior, retire on the top of the podium. And get out on top and kind of just enjoy the whole experience. So it was just a really cool personal growth experience. But now it's over. It's been like 2 years, and it's been so interesting to see the aftermath too, because athletes share a common thing. As a dancer, I'm sure you know, like when your career stops, you lose your entire identity, and you lose your workout routine. Your body changes, so you deal with all these other things. That when you're in the grind, you're like, I can't wait for this to be over because I'm going to have this great life. I'm going to do all these things, and I mean, I do have so much more flexibility. I go to my friends' weddings. I can, these things I wasn't able to do when I was on the team.
Right.
I have weekends. I can see my niece and nephew. Those things I'm probably taking for granted now. But I remember, wanting that real normal life, and now so I catch myself being like, why'd you step away? Like, you're still healthy. You could have kept going, but coming back and walking myself through the same decision making why I chose the things that I did. So it's just been, the journey doesn't end. That's the thing, right? I mean, we have small goals and big goals in between, but as soon as you hit the highest peak, you have to come down from it, and then you can go to the next one, or maybe there's some plateaus here, but it's the story. I mean, the glitz and the glam ends in Rio, but there's a lot of people struggle afterward, which I definitely did. I raised my hand. It was really hard. It still is sometimes.
Oh my gosh. But can you describe more what that transition was like for you, and what your decision ultimately was to stop water polo, and because I think a lot of people can identify, like I can for sure identify with that loss of identity and what it does to you ultimately.
Yeah, I think, I mean, again, I'm not, I haven't studied any of this. I'm really just speaking from my personal experience and just what I think or have an idea about. I knew to expect a little bit of a dip. My uncle was an Olympian, and my mom warned me. She's like, if you go this route, there's a difficult time period afterward where you don't know what to do with yourself, and just really be aware of what you kind of turn to. If it's friends, if it's substances. I think like my mom saw maybe people turn to alcohol, and just really be aware of like where you are in this. Like, you're gonna come down, and it's not gonna be fun. So from this athletic high, this life achievement, you're 26. It's one of those things where you're like, this is amazing, but is my life downhill from here? That's a thought that you write down. Like, everything's downhill from here, which it's not. But
another lie.
Again. So I do think, one, you lose the identity. Everything changes, right? You're used to a routine, a schedule. You're used to seeing the exact same people every single day. And the same thing happens is people graduate. Maybe if you're in a university program or a club program, you kind of age out. So those, you can you get tastes of it where no year is the same, no season is the same. It's different. You kind of mourn the season before. But we leave Rio, and the team's never together again in the same capacity that we were, because girls are going to retire. Coaches may not come back. You're just never the same. And so that's a really hard thing. We did a little team meeting in an airport, and we're like, team, that's the last one. It's in the moment you're like, everything's gonna be fine, but that was it. That's the last time we're all together. So you're mourning a loss of family. You're mourning how you see value in yourself. I think you're like, I'm an athlete. I'm an elite athlete. I am so proud. I wear USA on my I wear USA on my chest. And yes, I once an Olympian, always an Olympian. You always kind of carry that, but in your heart, I'm not doing the training that they're doing anymore. And so that mixed with the body stuff, your body changes. You're going to gain weight. Your metabolism is going to change. That's just going to happen. And you may live life after that. Your body will adjust, but it takes a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to find, like I could have, playing water polo, you burn so many calories. I could eat anything, anything I wanted at any time of day. I was like guzzling like protein drinks before bed. I was trying to keep weight on.
Wow.
And now, not only like in your mid to late 20s, your metabolism changes, but you just can't eat like that anymore because I don't have the time to work out the same. It's
Right.
I could if I was still putting the same, exuding the same energy, but I'm not.
Yeah.
So that happens. And then I do think something happens physiologically, and I don't know what it is, but there has to be something where, I was training, you were training, people, the thing that you're used to, whatever it is that your identity is, especially if it's physical, you're training X amount of hours a week, and your body is used to these like endorphins or serotonin or all the things that make you kind of that well-oiled machine. Your body's not getting it anymore. Cause I quit cold turkey. I haven't swam in a pool for a workout probably since 2016. Like I do other things, but I do it differently now. And I don't have the same, just like swimming. Like I said, it was meditative to me. I could always check in, like every morning I just checked in with myself. I don't have that same thing. And I do think your body, your brain, it's probably like coming off of a drug. Like it loses these things that it's used to, and you don't really know how to deal with it because nobody's really prepared you for it. And there's definitely depression. Like I definitely felt really sad and like really just empty, and like, you just feed yourself those negative things like I'm nobody anymore, which is a huge freaking lie. But like my values not attached to me have been, I can't imagine how like really famous athletes probably feel. Like I played water polo. Like I'm not taking that away from accomplishments that I was able to achieve, but I was on the team for like 4 years. I was in a team sport, didn't have a lot of, no like personal or individual sponsors, not too much stuff. Like one of the beauties of water polo is you don't make a lot of money, if any. So you never question anyone's intentions on your team. I'm like, I know she's here because she loves water polo, and I know she's here because she loves water polo. You never have to do that.
Right.
And so it's not like you lose like your income or any of that stuff. Part of the reason why I stepped away was because I have to look out for myself and my career, and you can't play sports forever. But yeah, the combination of all the things that you lose at once is, you're not told that it's okay to grieve that. So you kind of just walk around like an empty human for probably a year and a half. Like I was lucky I had some teammates that I could call. And again, my family's really in tune with mental health, but I would call teammates, and I use humor a lot to talk about really uncomfortable things. I'd be like, yeah, I'm like this close to driving my car just like off the freeway because because that sounds good right now, and I was legitimately having that thought, like, Nate, like, do I want to take myself? Like, should I just take myself out and just like call it? Like, people will remember me as a really good athlete. Like, those were real thoughts that I had. And I even say it to you now, like with this sort of sarcastic tone, because that's the easiest way to communicate it. But I absolutely had thoughts like that, and they were really scary. And again, I kind of had the wherewithal, like, I really should probably see a therapist because I need to talk to someone about this. And I've been doing that about a year now, a little over a year. And it's so great. She gives me the validation, like you're grieving a part of yourself, and like she stayed close to me, like, are we still having these thoughts? Are we still kind of energizing any of them? Where are we on that? Because she's a professional and she knows that's very serious. But she also knew I was just aware of my thoughts. I was aware of things I could reflect, and so I would share this stuff with her and be like, I want to get sick. Like I want to be in the hospital so people feel bad for me. And that, like, I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, please don't energize that. I'm like, I don't want to. Like I shouldn't. But I just didn't know how to like exist in the world. And there is like a source of shame in sharing those things because I'm healthy. I've achieved things. I've accomplished things. But there's still thoughts that come in, and I wasn't as equipped. I like stopped meditating. I was like, I don't need it anymore because I'm not trying to make an Olympic team,
Right. Yeah.
which another lie.
Yeah. So the whole purpose has changed in life, essentially, like that whole. Yeah. Wow.
So, I'm definitely still figuring it out, but I'm proud of the ability to see that I needed someone professional to talk with. I haven't, from college till now, I hadn't really had anyone. I had my sports psychologist sort of, but just knowing like, hey, this I can't help myself right now because I'm just like not on it. And so once a month I'll go to her. Again, I think it's BS that it's so expensive, but I think everybody should have a therapist, but for me, it's a necessity, and it's the same thing as having a trainer in the weight room. It's someone that like guides you, and when you find the right one, because maybe not your first one's the best one. I think it's important to try to educate yourself and find the right fit. But I think once you find that, then you have someone that is a professional, is trained in, this sort of relationship, and you can trust them with some of your deepest things. And in turn, for me, it was very similar to what I did when I got cut from the team. It's like, I know I'm doing a little bit extra. I know I'm putting the effort in. I don't know how it's going to help me in the long run, but I'm aware enough to be doing these things. So this is a good sign. So we're like on the right track. So that's kind of where I've been. It hasn't been easy. I mean, my coach will check in with me every now and then, but he's busy coaching the team. Me and an old teammate, we check in on each other probably once a week. And then of course, like my family, like if ever I'm feeling a little off, I'll talk to my mom or mostly my mom. I usually don't call my dad. Hopefully everyone out there has, someone that's close to you that you feel so safe with that you can be like, I've been having weird thoughts. Do you think, you could like pray for me or do you want to go on a walk with me, or just kind of like, if you need to vent something, it's like, my mom's always good with me. I don't have to say it, but it's always great when you're talking to someone, if it's new, to be like, hey, are you open to keeping this confidential? I think that's really important to set those boundaries and those expectations, especially because of fear. Even my mom will share things with me and she's like, I'm saying this to you in confidence. I think that's really important. And so having that respect and identifying those people that will respect that wish. But as soon as, you feel safe with someone and have that expectation, I think definitely leaning on people is a great way to get through it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Try to meditate, try to do, I have things that bring joy, the creative things. Going back to your compass, I mean, when I was on the team, we made personal values, and I think mine were like, we changed them every now and then, but my ones that have stuck with me are courage, creativity, humor, respect, and industry. So I think no matter what the situation, and my sports psychologist, whenever I was like going through a thing and I had to reflect some way, be like, let's go back to your values. Where do they apply right now? And one of them would usually stick out more than the others. And so to this day, I think that's a really cool thing to have. I'm feeling kind of like uninspired. Like, okay, I should go to a painting class or something creative. Or am I feeling bad because I know I need to be courageous in this moment? I'm not being. Like, do I need to really like focus on courage and put myself in an uncomfortable position? And knowing that it will better me, probably, or having the respecting myself. I know I'm not in a good place, respecting what's going on and taking the appropriate steps. So I think it's always a good exercise, and that's another conversation for another day, but figuring out those things that can kind of help guide you, that you can be like, okay, what are like the core things here that are going to make me feel at home and make me feel challenged, like not just things that I'm just going to like curl up under, but things that are going to make me introspect and then kind of just course correct, and then I can kind of jump out of it again. I think that's another tool that I got from the national team that I'm really grateful for.
Yeah, that's incredible, because even just listening to that, it sounds like a new way to put purpose to your feelings, even like how I heard from you say, oh, I'm feeling this way, so that means I've got to now practice this to get to that value, what I value. I love that so much.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that into my own life.
You should.
It's important to know what you value, first of all. I love that. I don't think we take enough time to even think about what we value, especially at a young age, like in our 20s and stuff. That's such a great time to do that. And then to actively be like, okay, I value this. This is what I'm feeling. All right, I'm going to go in this direction to help with that. Like, I think that's awesome. I mean, I'm sure that's helped you so much, but is there like a specific exercise our audience could take with them?
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely. So I'll try to like rush through it for helping with the finding those values. Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, and I mean, our team took 2 days doing this, but you can make a kind of like a life map. So you come up with like your 5 highest points in life and your 5 to 10 highest points, 5 to 10 lowest points. And you can kind of think back, and it was, I mean, for me, it was maybe like just like being a kid, like you do age at the bottom and then like point of height on the other side, and you kind of make the dots. And so you have this sort of diagram that's connecting the dots, and you're kind of able to see, and maybe you do the bottom, like depending on how old you are, like every year or every 5 years, you separate it that way. And then you write down 5 to 10 life highlights. So prior to, I did this exercise in 2013 or 14. Prior to that, it was maybe like, I don't know if I could remember much middle school, like childhood AYSO, just like being a free young kid and having no worries. Like that was pretty awesome. Yeah. Like my childhood was like a high. Actually it was like the first horse I ever got to lease, because that was my first love, was horseback riding. So like a lot of stuff was horse related kind of in the earlier years. And then I would say like middle school actually was one of the low one. That's kind of where I probably was first introduced to like negative thoughts about myself. So I would like put that down there, and then the horse was up here, and then there's like maybe a little plateau. And then I go up here to getting recruited to college, going to UCLA, national championship way up here. Oh, sophomore, junior, senior year, way down here. You kind of like, you realize where your highs and lows are. And then once you have that mapped out, at every point you have to write down the values or the words, and try to like not hone it, but try to really think about like anything can be a value as long as it's kind of like a word, like humor, intuition. It can be like any word really, and like list out 5 things that were there in that moment at that height, and like down here list 5 things that were missing. And then like you start kind of like repeating words, you start seeing like what you associate these moments with and what really is kind of your value. And then you kind of get to this list of words, and you figure out some of them overlap, some of them probably have to pick one, because you want humor and lightheartedness. Like you really want to kind of have a compass of like things that are pointing different directions versus not. So you kind of have these things. Maybe you have I think love and respect, like depending on who you are, what you feel, those could be kind of the same thing. Like you can kind of argue there, like you respect something, you're kind of giving this energy to it that's really committed. So you kind of have to make those choices yourself. It's really a personal thing. But then you kind of hone in on like your 5 things. And I love industry because to me, I associate hard work. That's like my hard work one. Are you really putting in the effort? Are you? Do you know? You know if you are or not. Creativity is like just the artistic freedom, like really fun kind of, for me, just flow.
Yeah.
Courage. I mean, courage and respect probably could be, depending on who you are, could be a similar thing. But for me, I'm like, no, like I can respect stuff, but courage is like really tough for me because I don't like confrontation. So that was kind of like one of my industry and courage are probably like my challengers. Like if I know I'm not doing something, I need to apply those, or I need to do those in order to kind of get to where I'll feel better about it. Respect is a big one, and you can use it a lot of ways. Like, are you respecting other people? Are you respecting yourself? Are you respecting like this situation? That one you can probably tie in anywhere. And then humor, which could be a little bit close to creativity, but I just like, as long as you're having fun, or if you can turn something into like just something that's light and fun and all these things like courage and respect and industry, like those can be really hard. If I can have kind of like a creativity and humor over here where I can like pull them in, if I have to do something with respect, then it's like, I want to do it because it's going to be fun or funny or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, awesome. Yeah, you kind of have this little blanket that you can pull from. But I realized those were my words because in my moments of darkness or height, it was, I had courage, or I had, I was respected this process, respected my opponents, and was able to kind of be the right competitor. If I had a big loss or we weren't, probably my sophomore, junior year, I wasn't respecting like the water polo process and how hard it is to be at the top. I was just like, well, we won last year. We're going to be good again. Lie. So, yeah, that's a pretty simple exercise, but it's the choosing of the values and they can change. They can totally change. You can be like, you know what, I'm going to go with, love instead of respect because like, that's just more and more important to me. Good places we were given like this like list. I don't know if you can Google it or anything, but like John Wooden's pyramid has some really good values on it. I think you could probably just research some like sports stuff, and usually there's some really like life applying values that the coaches have pulled into their philosophies. So
awesome. Well, for you guys watching, I'm definitely going to do that exercise. I'm already thinking about it. I love all that stuff. That's so fun. That's fun.
Yeah. Okay. And then write down your values once you have them. Write them down and like just kind of memorize them, because in the moment, if you're feeling super crappy or even like super elated and you're like, is this a dangerous happiness? Try to figure out like how you can, but you can always course correct, which is the coolest thing. You can always turn negatives into positives.
I love the visual of the compass, like that being your compass. I love that so much as the guide. Thanks for sharing. I think that's awesome. So I was going to ask about resources, but we got those. Let's see. What's coming up in your life that's very exciting around being a mental health advocate for you, KK, and kind of like the destigmatizing of mental illness?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like, so I've sort of pivoted in my career, and it's difficult because I'm in those like stages that a lot of my peers were in right after you graduate college, where you're kind of grinding for those 2 years probably before you can really like master something and then branch out. And because of that, I have had to pause kind of any sort of direction I had with how I want to make an imprint in this subject and in this world. So my sister has had some bigger ideas. She wants to start like she calls it the Mental Wealth Collective, because mental health is mental wealth. But she wants to she started doing some yoga training and got her certification. So her dream, and I'm not attaching myself to it, it's totally her dream, was to be able to offer yoga for outpatient patients who had just been diagnosed with a mental illness of some kind. This is still all in like kind of like still the ideal phase, logistics I think she's thought of, but she's like wanted to find spaces to offer this stuff like close to public transportation, close to places where people would really benefit from. And I think that's a beautiful cause. She's still very much in the beginning phases, but it's more just ideas. Like I've always wanted to like maybe write like a children's book, or I've always wanted to write a book, but I'm like, maybe I start small with like something like a children's book, or like something about, there's a little heroin, we should just do some brain stuff. I don't know, something where you're still sending the message about introducing, I don't know, some kind of working with your mind to achieve something. I don't know. I think that would be a really good first step. I started kind of interviewing younger teenager girls just to kind of get the lay of the land nowadays, because I'm 28, so I have an idea of what it's like to be in your guys' shoes, but just with technology and everything, I definitely don't know what it is like. Yeah, I think I was listening to one of your recent episodes, and they were saying how like you can watch a party happen in front of your eyes, like on Snapchat or something, and like you weren't invited. Like, I like listened to that, and I was like, that sounds like the worst thing of all time, because like I grew up in the era where like I remember I didn't get invited to someone's like birthday party or something. I was devastated, but I didn't have to like look at all the photos they took and all the memories they made and all the all the fun they had. I just like, you kind of like thought about it. I'm sure they're having fun, but you were never confronted with that. And so I don't know what it's so different today, and I can't. And it's all internal. It's all happening. Like I've sat on my phone, and you're like having like you're taking in inputs, and then you like put your phone down, and then it's over. But you've just like digested all of that, but you can't share it with like your family or your friends because it's something happening so internal. So I would love to get to know just what's going on a little bit more before I feel like I can tell people how to live their lives. I was doing a few like different speaking engagements here and there.
You're
mostly like mostly sport focused. Thank you. But right now I feel like every sort of effort I've dreamed of or planned is a little bit on pause, just because where I am in my career, I have to kind of devote all my time to that. But I am hopeful that opportunities or ideas come in the future where I can just kind of share my story and just help people. It's so funny because I lived my story. I don't think, to me, it's not remarkable, like it's just mine, but it's so great to get feedback. And, I don't always remember that people aren't given the same tools that I was given. And so being like, this is what I used can be changing for someone, like really, really important for somebody to hear. So I'm really inspired by what you're doing, what your generation is doing. And I'm just, I guess, looking forward to figuring out where my place in it is. But I think sharing everything is really important. I know I was put on this earth to do something. I don't know if it was winning a gold medal, but I think that has something to do with
one of the things,
the platform or the voice. Yeah, exactly. So I'm eager to kind of make my mark. I mean, when I do clinics, I do water polo clinics. I talk about this stuff because I think it's important for young girls to hear, girls and boys, to be honest. So I definitely place emphasis on the mental side of the game, but I just never know if actually, no, it's the best moments are like, talked about this and my experience with just working with my mind. And there was this young girl, she was probably 9. She came up to me after the camp and was like, I got everything you said. Everything you said, I was like, I've experienced that. Like, I know exactly what she's talking about. Like all this like negative self-talk. And I just wanted to like give her a big hug. So that was really cool. And it's always really cool when people say that something I said clicked with them. Because we're all human and we all have just, everything can be good, everything can be bad. I think just the more you can be aware of your thoughts and have something out here that can like keep you in check, the better off you can be. It's when, and I still experience to this day, when you have that spiral and you're just like, you're like stuck to it, like peanut butter or something. Like you just like cannot separate yourself from this like spiral, and you're sitting there and you're like, I know this isn't good, but I just really keep feeding this. Like it kind of, it weirdly feels good because maybe in feeding it, you're validating yourself. So you're like, this is, this like, you like hear yourself and you get it. But then the other part of you is like, let's be nicer to ourselves. Like let's take a step back. So I think, like you're not wrong and all of it's true. Like you are feeling those things, but you just have to be able to know that not everything you think is real and not everything you think is healthy. And so just trying to find out what's healthy for you and being gentle with yourself as far as the accountability goes with it. And then when it's time to call into someone else, I think just having that bravery and being like, and identifying the right people too, because there's definitely fear in identifying the wrong person and confiding in them, and then it completely backfiring for whatever reason.
Yeah. Have you had
So I think
experiences with that? Like,
I haven't, but I can imagine. I mean, I don't think, I can't remember if I was younger and I ever did that. I mean, there's always kind of the girl stuff at school, like you tell someone a secret and it comes out, but like, was it really a
yeah.
secret? I think with the serious stuff, if you are listening and you are a bit younger, I think looking for an adult is probably a better idea than maybe a peer. I don't know if, unless, you know, that person's someone who maybe has older siblings that have gone through something similar. But I think also just being intentional about why you're telling that person. Are you telling someone something because you want something back from them, or you know, just kind of holding yourself accountable to, if it is a peer, if it's someone who's involved potentially with maybe some of the emotions you're feeling. I would, if it were me telling a younger version of myself, I would be like, maybe go to like your sister or brother. I don't have any brothers, but like a sibling or a parent, I think is probably a better bet than younger emotional version you maybe not making a proper choice and someone to really confide in, because some people just aren't. I can imagine, I've never been there, but I mean, me when I was younger, I used to think, you know, someone who was behaving maybe not naturally, like I couldn't correlate the proper mental illness, someone's going through something to what it is. So young me would not have been a good recipient of, you know, some of that maybe heavier topics. So you see younger me at school, don't keep it light with her.
Yeah, I think that's really important too. But I find nowadays, like my sisters, even they're 16, and when they were 12, my sister's close friend came to her and said she was cutting herself. And for my sister, thankfully, the culture in our home was always to tell a trusted adult. So even if it is a peer telling you something, I think it is, the bottom line is to get to a trusted adult for sure, because they have that perspective that we don't at that age. I still don't. I go to my mom all the time. My dad, and like, and so KK, where can people find you online? Where can you find more of you in what you're doing?
So I am active on Instagram. I would say I pepper my posts with more mindful stuff. I'm so funny. I'm still self-conscious when it comes to stuff like that. I can proudly go on here with you, right, and talk about some
you're so
serious things. But with, I mean, the nature of that app, right? I mean, I still have a relationship with it. I'm 28. It started sort of around the athlete and our trainings, and we're traveling here and doing this stuff. Now it's a little bit more just like weekends and fun things, but I think, and it's probably the perfectionist in me, is scared to really kind of turn it into a place to talk about mental health, just because I don't know what the response is going to be. You know, it's safer to do it in these channels that are already labeled and identified as, this is a space where we're going to be talking about this stuff. I wondered how like my water polo fans would take like hey, let's get serious, guys, you know, but I think it's important because it ultimately is a part of who I am. So you won't probably see a lot of, you know, the confronting things that we talked about today, but I am on there and I am fairly open. I mean, all the girls I meet at clinics, I'm always like, friend me, I'll follow you back, PM. Let's like, they'll update me every now and then. Like I got a text the other day that was like, I made the cadet team, you know, like these really exciting achievements these girls are making. Again, I'm not taking ownership over their successes, but I've been able to touch them along through their journey and share with them kind of things that help me. So that's really cool. And I love engaging with people on that forum. So I'm on Instagram, kk.clark, CLARK. It's just 2 Ks. I think I deleted my Twitter. I used to be on Twitter, and then I'm not Snapchat or either. I have a Facebook, but I don't use that either. So I'm very much a millennial of the late 20s that keeping it simple. No, I mean, I've always had ideas to expand like websites or clinics or talk. I don't know if ever that happens, I'll probably announce it on my Instagram. So we'll start there.
Please do. Yeah. Well, I would love that. And even hearing your story today, KK, like what you've done in all of your trials and tribulations, from being an athlete to transitioning from being an athlete to your family life and just everything in between, has been really extraordinary for me to hear, because I relate, even though we've had such different experiences obviously in our lives, there's the high points and the low points, and so much of what you said I completely resonate with, and it's really made me look at my own problems that I have had with perfectionism and mental health, mental illness, and changing of identity and all of that, looking at that differently, and even just having that difference of perspective, I know has already made a positive impact in my life, just interviewing you. So thank you for just being so honest and vulnerable, and just being you. Like it's just awesome to be able to share you with our audience like this, and just be able to speak with you. It's really, really fantastic to be able to have that from you on this platform, and I really hope to see you more, like your book, like even what you've done with the Olympics.
Oh, we're staying in touch. We're staying in touch,
awesome.
bro.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We're gonna check in every
yeah. And when the book comes out, and when everything comes out, I'm
like have to hold myself accountable. You have to like text me like, how's the children's book?
Yeah, I will. My mom's a children's book author, actually, so I should connect you guys.
Yeah.
Yes,
oh my god.
Yes. Yeah. Because I think like just the ideas that you have are fantastic. Yeah. So guys, stay tuned if you're watching. We've got an author to be here.
Yeah, you heard it. You heard it here first, folks.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes.
No, I love it. And again, I just want to thank you, Madison, for building this platform. And no, I mean it makes me feel better as an adult to see, that, I guess, for the same generation, but the next generation, right?
Yeah.
The people coming up under me just a little bit are putting this effort in and being so aware. And I mean, it really starts with people like you just getting the word out and making this like a cool space, because I think there has been so much stigma attached to it, and there still is, definitely. Like it's not like a switch that's flipped and all of a sudden there. I mean, personally, we have to always kind of hold ourselves accountable to it. But I think, no, it's great what you're doing, and I'm just so happy to be a part of it. So, yeah.
Thanks. Well, I've got to thank Mackenzie on here too. She's the mastermind behind it all, and I'm so grateful she connected us. Mackenzie, Mackenzie, thank you.
Shout out, Mac.
Oh yeah. Well, this has been awesome, you guys. If you want more mental health resources on how you can support your friends and how you can actually support yourself through your own mental health journey, go to our website, www.myteam.org, and follow us on Instagram at myteam.social. Follow KK and see what she's up to. And stay tuned. We're going to have some awesome new episodes. And I think I would love to have you on again, KK, as well.
Yeah, we should do that exercise. We should actually dive into it. Yeah.
I would love. I'm gonna do it when we get off the call. Actually.
Okay. I'll email you. I'll email you the list of words. There's hundreds of words. I'm like, I didn't know these are all values, but it just gets your brain started. So I'll be like that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, because I'll work on it. And yeah, thank you guys so much. Tune in again really soon, and we'll see you around next time. Bye.
Thanks, guys.